Alright, hey, it's Mick here. So, I got done working on this the other day, okay? Or 2 days ago, actually. So it's kind of a Monday and I got a day off, and so we're gonna finish working. I'm gonna do as much work as I can for the KLX as I can, okay? This is not done yet, okay? I got it done on, I think I got it done on a Sunday, and then the motorcycle shops are closed on a Monday, okay? So I have to wait till tomorrow. I actually tried to go to Costco the other day and fill it up with nitrogen with the nitrogen inflator pump there. I found out you can do it up to 80 psi on that bad boy. It'll actually do it. But the problem is there's no pressure inside the bladder. I think it's the tire inflator. It has to sense a pressure for it to release the hydrogen, okay? Not hydrogen, the nitrogen into whatever you're filling out of the tire in that case. But yeah, so I could not get it to put any nitrogen into this, unfortunately. But that is one thing you could do if you are kind of low. Like I think when I first checked this, it had like 15 psi in it. So chances are, like, I probably could have filled it up a little bit, like halfway, because it'll only go up to 80. You need 142 psi in this thing, okay? So so we're gonna just continue working on the bike, trying to get this guy in. So for the most part, it's done. I changed the oil in it, okay? It got kind of contaminated again once I put the piston in. Next time, what I'm gonna do is just put oil in there, put everything back in there, and then swish the pump the piston in and out until like all that stuff gets out of the piston, because apparently there is a lot of still that old oil and aluminum shavings and stuff in the piston still. Okay, and then it just contaminated the oil again. But the oil is much cleaner than it was before. Okay, so anyway, so we're gonna continue modifying the KLX to fit this guy. Okay, so what we've done so far is we've changed the oil, and we just need to add nitrogen to it, and then it's done. Okay, now I had measured the preload on this before, and it was 33 millimeters. You have to measure 33 millimeters of thread to get it to where it was. But then I realized the shock body, the shock is physically a different size than the KLX141, so that preload probably won't work. But we'll try to get it as close as we can. I got it kind of where I want it right now. What I'll do is we'll actually check the sag on the bike and then adjust it before I put everything back together. Okay. That's the best thing to do while everything's out. Okay, so also what I've done is I've moved the adjuster on the opposite side of the reservoir. Okay, so on the KLX, that's the way it is. Okay, so the I think this is the compression adjustment on the top is on the left side of the bike, and the KLX, not the KX, does it on the same side. Okay, so it would be right here. Okay. But all you have to do is just rotate this. That's all. It rotates, okay. But when we install it on the bike, it's going to be opposite of the reservoir, okay. On the KX, it actually says specifically in the manual to have the adjusters on both the same side. That's the way they are on the KX. But on the KLX, it's not. So I'm going to do it the other way, okay. Yeah, this looks a little different too. The clevis, it looks a little thicker on the other side. So I don't know. This is the KLX 140 clevis, okay, it's a longer one, on a KX100 shock, okay, and then I put the BBR stiffer spring on this from the from my KLX140. I already had a stiffer spring on it, okay, and we installed a new bumper, okay, the bump stop. It has a brand new KYB bump stop, okay. The one on here, it was completely gone, okay. And compatibility. It looks like the purchase might be a little bit smaller, but it still works. Okay, the shock works. This BBR spring is actually a little bit shorter than the stock KX spring, which is good because it makes it easier to install. I have to use a spring compressor to get the stock KX spring out because it was so damn long. Okay, this one is a lot easier because it's shorter. It's shorter, but it's actually stiffer. So, because you can tell it's the coils are beefier on this. So that's a good thing. It's easier to install. Okay, so that's all right. So then, so we're gonna go start modifying the KLX140. So what's got to happen is we've got to change the where the top mount sits. We have to actually move this to the side, towards the right side of the bike, because this reservoir is actually bigger than the KLX141. Okay, so I didn't make any of this stuff up. I looked on Thumper Talk, somebody had done it to their bike. Okay, so that's what they did. They changed the offset of the shock. They moved it to the right a little bit where the shock mounts, and then they added, and then we're gonna make a spacer that goes on the other side, so it sits in the middle now. Okay, because on the I think the KLX140, the shock is actually offset to the left a little bit, because you can see, you'll see when we take a look at the bike, you'll see, and then we get the longer clevis on it. Okay, before we actually put this in, we're gonna flip the linkage on the bike. So what flipping the linkage on the bike does is it makes the ride height taller. Okay, yeah, so we're gonna flip the linkage on the bike. Okay, so and what that does is it actually increases the ride height of the bike. So that's very important, because this shock has more travel than the KLX140 shock. So if you have more travel and you don't have the clearance for it on the body, or you don't have enough travel in the suspension to match this, the wheel will hit the fender, and you don't want that. Okay, I've had that happen to me before because I didn't modify but we have a bump stop, so that should prevent that from happening, hopefully, but we'll find out. Before we get everything back together, I will take the spring out again, and then we'll mount this on the bike without the spring, and then we'll move the suspension as far as it'll go until it hits the bump stop, and we'll see if it contacts the fender. Okay, but that's after we modify flip the linkage. Okay, so when it's all said and done, that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna take the spring off and put it back on there, and then move it all the way up through the stroke until it hits the bumper, and then we'll see if it hits the fender. Okay, we'll see how much clearance. I think it should be fine. Okay, but this should also solve the problem with the rear of my KLX being a little lower than the front. Okay, and then maybe we can move the front forks down a little bit to give me a little more. So the bike will be a lot taller than it was before. Okay, which is it's a good thing. You know, it's always good to have extra ground clearance, especially when you're riding off road. Yeah, that's what I want to say. All right, so that's the introduction vlog for the next section. The last one was servicing the shock. Okay. And then this one, we're gonna go flip the linkage and then actually modify the bike so we can install this shock. We're like 80% there is what I'm gonna say. 80% there. All right. I didn't want to service the shock. It took me like a week to do it because I couldn't find the oil. So what am I gonna do? You know, the oil is really hard to find for this, but you can actually work on it. There's actual instructions and everything, so it's actually not too bad. You know, if you know what you're doing. All right, here's the big out.